Hi, and welcome to the return or maybe possibly the first episode of Hockey Spotlight. I am Liana and I am your hostess, and this is
Hi,
Lee,
I'm Lee. Yes,
my
I'm
co-host.
joining you. Yes, Grace, you asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. I was like, sure, let's go for it.
We've got a lot of exciting things coming up. We're going to talk about what's happened so far in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're also going to talk about the Federal Prospects Hockey League as well, and how one-sided that is right now, and some of the scores from that. But we're going to start off with the Stanley Cup playoffs. Uh, the Avalanche and Kraken has been very interesting. That series is tied at 1-1. I think the Avalanche have the edge, but um, I I am very surprised that the Kraken took the lead and they won the first game over the defending Stanley Cup champions. I mean, that's like kind of weird to happen. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, but Seattle's. I mean, Seattle had 100 points. They're not exactly a slacker, and now they're essentially they have home ice now. The series is tied. They're going home to Seattle, and I got to tell you that arena in Seattle is going to be electric. Those fans have been waiting forever to get an NHL team, and now they not only they have one that they're in the playoffs in their second year, and I would not be surprised to see Seattle pull off the upset with that one, not one bit.
Do you think that Colorado has it to take it to 7 games, or is this going to be a 5 game series?
I think it's going to be at least six. It's gonna go back. You know what I'm thinking is because it's the 2-2-1-1-1 format in the NHL. I think Seattle's going to win the next two games. Then it's going to go back to Denver for the one game. I think Colorado won that one, and Seattle will clinch it at home.
So this is a 6 game series.
It's going to end up being a six-game series. Yeah,
Okay. With
that's
Seattle
that's my
taking it.
prediction.
With Seattle
Yeah,
taking it. Okay. All right.
yeah.
I'm personally pulling for the Avalanche because I liked what happened last year. I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle wins. I wouldn't be upset because you and I obviously we have our favorite teams, so we're obviously pulling for our favorite teams. But the thing that I do in the playoffs is that I pick a team each game. So let's go ahead and talk about uh your Islanders and the Hurricanes. That's with Carolina leading the series 2-1. Um, I So me and Lee have been friends for like just a few days. We got connected through a mutual friend, through the wrestling business. We won't go into that rabbit hole. Um, uh, and Lee had been watching I think the second game it
Yep.
was, and he messaged me about a non-call and take us through the non-call and what happened from your perspective.
Well, I believe it was Mayfield was he was high stick. The guy, I mean, it was an obvious high stick right in front of the referee in
Right.
overtime, not called. And immediately Carolina goes down and scores the game winning goal. I mean, and another thing with that too was that game two, was the first playoff game in New York Islanders history where they did not have a single power play.
Now, do you my question for you as a broadcaster, not a Ranger fan, is do you think had that high stick been called and had the Islanders gone on the power play, do you think that the Islanders could have pulled it out and this could be 2-1 Islanders now?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right. That's what
I
I
think the Islanders had the momentum
okay.
going into overtime. Then going on the power play, I think they would have scored on that power play. To be honest, that's my opinion. We'll never know,
Yeah, so
but it's
so
obvious
this
they were
in
screwed.
in your opinion, this could be 2-1 Islanders, but it's
Yeah,
2-1 Carolina. Do you
yeah.
think that um that's do you think the Islanders are looking at that as motivation moving forward, or are they just playing their game?
Oh, just look at last night's game.
Yeah. That was
That
crazy last night. Me and you were both watching that game. And take us through it because I'm just gonna encapsulate it. It was I believe it was 3 goals, or was it 4 goals
four
in three
goals
minutes?
and
Four
I
goals in
think
3 minutes.
I think come down it was like 2 minutes and 40 something seconds.
And they
Is
scored
the
4 goals.
fastest 4 goals in playoff history. I mean, I'm gonna keep saying that. But the whole game, it was a great game. The first, you know, I guess maybe 50 minutes, it was so close. And then once the Highlanders got that that goal, that second goal, it just blew up. And it was that one and then another one. And my wife could tell you, I'm sitting here watching on my tablet because I had the River Dragons game on the TV. And I'm jumping in my chair and screaming. I actually scared her because I'm
Right?
like, this is amazing. And then they get the empty net goal.
Which was
So
awesome.
usually empty net goal, okay, that's it. You can relax now. And then they score another goal. And I'm like, it was so nuts. But if I wish the announcers would have laid out and just heard how you could hear it in the background how loud that arena was. Those fans were ready to go nuts, and they did.
Yeah. So
But I think that no call is going to end up is what is going to end up killing Carolina.
now and um so so let's go ahead and talk about the obvious that I'm a Ranger fan, you're an Islander fan. You're never going to root for the Rangers. I'm never going to root for the Islanders. I'm pulling for Carolina, but the momentum as a hockey fan, the momentum that the Islanders just grabbed was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. It was fun to watch as a
Yeah,
hockey fan, as just sitting back and observing. Again, I'm pulling for Carolina because I can't pull for the Islanders, but it was just crazy to watch. And then to find out that that's the fastest 4 goals in NHL in playoff history is pretty awesome.
yeah,
The Bruins and the Panthers. I'm pulling for the Panthers, simply because I can't pull for Boston. I just
me
can't.
too.
And
And it's not so
Boston,
much Boston; it's Brad Marchand. I can't stand that fucking
right?
guy.
So Boston leads that series 2-1, which, looking at it with Boston leading 2-1, and you see that just looking at Boston lead 2-1 and not seeing the games, you don't understand that even though, like, if you watch those games, that the Panthers, even though they only have won one game, they won that first game over Boston. And Boston, from what I understand, was the best team in the regular season
Bet they got the best record in NHL history.
in NHL history. Thank you very much. This is why you're my co-host. Um,
Yeah, they
so
broke the record for most wins and most points.
yeah, I think that Florida, if they really continue, and I know it's like passe, but if they just play their game, I think that they can drive this to 7 games, and that seventh game be a deciding factor. What do you think?
I think so. I think honestly, Florida's looking at it like they want to do to Boston what happened to them last year.
Yeah,
Florida had the best record in the league last year, and they were eliminated in the I don't remember. I think it was the first round or second round. But everybody's like, oh, they're going to go all the way. And now they barely squeak into the playoffs, and now they got to play Boston, who, like I said, the best record in history. They'd love nothing more than to return the favor to what happened to them last year. And I'm the same with you. I can't stand Boston. I'm just not a Boston fan. I'm a New York fan. I'm
Yeah,
a Mets fan. I'm an Islanders fan. We
right,
hate Boston. That's one thing. There's two things that Rangers and Islanders fans have in common. We hate the Bruins. Well, three things. We hate the Bruins. We hate the Devils, and we hate the Flyers.
right, exactly. So that we have
Yeah.
in common. So again,
So yeah,
like I think that both of us agree that this is a good possibility for a 7 game series, and that seventh
yeah,
game being the deciding factor, right?
yeah. Game. Well, game. I think Game 4 is going to be the deciding factor. If
Game four.
Boston wins Game 4, goes up 3-1. It's over.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, um, yeah, I could see that happening if Boston wins. Yeah, you got a good point there. Have you been able to watch any of the West Coast games?
I'm a Golden Knights fan. I've watched
Okay,
every
we'll
Vegas
talk about
game.
that in a minute. We'll
Yeah,
get there in a minute.
and I've seen a couple of the Winnipeg, the Winnipeg Vegas. I've seen. They said some of the Colorado, Minnesota.
All right, so the Stars in the Wild, I have loved this. Minnesota leads 2-1. I'm pulling for Dallas. I'm a Dallas Stars. Like I love Dallas. Like that's um between them and the Calgary Flames, those are my two West Coast teams. So
Yeah.
I just love Calgary from the 2004 Stanley Cup between the Lightning and the Calgary Flames. I enjoyed that series, so I'm kind of like a closet uh, Calgary fan. So Minnesota
Well,
leads,
I think I told you I'm a Calgary fan because my buddy plays for the Wranglers, their AHL team. So.
right? So Minnesota leads that series 2-1. On paper, again, that sounds like okay, you know, but if you've actually had a chance to watch the game, there's a lot of scrums,
Yeah.
a lot of very close to fighting. I mean, jerseys getting pulled down, like visors getting, helmets getting taken off, all cross-checking penalties and stuff like that. Even though I'm pulling for the Stars, I think the Stars have to win like
Yeah.
tomorrow. I think the Stars have to win to make it 2-2, or Minnesota's gonna take this.
Yeah. And I'm kind of a Minnesota fan. We used to spend a lot of time in Minneapolis, and we were actually up there when they had that big Cinderella run about what 7 8 years, about 6 7 years ago. And so I kind of like the Wild because I mean I love their logo, and that's they got one of the best logos in the NHL. But they're a good team, and they're plus I love Marc Andre Fleury and Ryan Reeves. They're two of my favorite players, and I'd love to see Ryan Reeves finally get that Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
He leaves St. Louis, they win a Stanley Cup. So
yeah,
I kind of felt bad for him, but yeah, I'd love to see a guy like Ryan Reeves who's busted his ass his whole career, kind of overlooked by some to finally get that ring, which obviously if they do it, that means my Knights and my Islanders don't do it. So,
well,
but
I don't
yeah,
understand why Reeves. I don't, because I wasn't paying attention to it. But Ryan Reeves was a really good Ranger.
yeah,
And so I never looked it up and understood why he exited the Rangers. I liked him. I liked his um, tenacity and his, the fact that he could stand up for his teammates. I like Brian Reeves as well, and I'm kind of sad that he's gone from the Rangers because he really is that stand-up guy. Not so much an enforcer, but just standing up for the teammates. But he can brawl if he has to.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I said I don't know why the Knights got rid of him. I don't know why the Rangers got rid of him. It's gonna. He's a good player. He's a big guy. He hits like a freaking truck.
Yeah, he does.
He's a guy you want on your team. You hate to play against.
So, and tomorrow at 6:30 is the game for between Minnesota and Dallas, with Minnesota leading 2-1. My opinion is that the Stars have to take this fourth
Oh
game.
yeah,
or Minnesota takes it.
Yeah,
what are your
you don't want
thoughts
to
on
go
that?
down 3-1. You never
Yeah,
want to go down
exactly,
3-1.
exactly, exactly. So we're agreeing on that. Um, Game four, this is a really, really hard one for me. The Oilers and the Kings, I'm having a really hard time with this one because even though, God, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, the Rangers played the Kings in the Stanley Cup playoffs and the Kings beat them, I still want to root for LA, but then there's that part of me that kind of can't forgive them for beating us. And then, but I like Connor McDavid, so I think I'm pulling for the Oilers, but and I am pulling for the Oilers, but there's that part of me that kind of wants to pull for the Kings, but I'm not. Um,
Yeah.
the Kings lead that series 2-1. I think, and I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, but not so much win the game, but the Oilers have to step on the gas.
Yeah.
Step on the gas, get the puck to McDavid. Get the puck to McDavid because last night he proved it. He scored 2 goals. He was quiet. He's kind of quiet during the regular season. Um, what do you think about that series?
Yeah, I mean, as a hockey fan, I'd love to see a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup. They haven't won it since 90
It's
94, I believe, or
it's been a
95.
while. Yeah, it's been a while.
So of course, it'd be nice to see a Canadian team, and you know, not exactly the team that I'd want to win it,
But a
Edmonton,
Canadian
but
team nonetheless.
yeah, as long as it isn't Toronto, I'll be okay with it. I can't stand Toronto and I can't stand Winnipeg. Those are probably the only two Canadian teams that I'd root against. But to see a Canadian team win the cup would be nice. Montreal came close during the COVID Cup, I call it. So yeah, to see Edmonton, I'd hate to see them get knocked out in the first round. McDavid's a generational player. Connor McDavid's once
Yeah,
in a generation.
definitely.
You know, everybody said Ovechkin and Crosby. I think McDavid's better than both of them, honestly. So I think they need to. I'm not going to say he needs to carry him, but they definitely need to get on his kind of get on his back and start, like you said, start feeding him a little bit more,
Yeah,
and that's going to be the
exactly.
key.
Yeah. So, I think maybe for me, I'm pulling for the Oilers. Again, they have to step on the gas, get the puck to McDavid, and tie this series, or the Kings take it.
Yeah, and of course, being a Calgary fan, it's kind of hard to root for the other Alberta team.
Right. So you're going for the Kings?
Not really. It's one of those ones where I'm not really rooting for anybody. I'm just kind
Okay.
of enjoying hockey, I guess.
So the Golden Knights versus the Jets, let's talk about that. This series, I think, is besides the obvious, which is the Rangers and the Islanders. We'll talk about those. I wanted to leave those for last because I think that's a huge discussion, even though we talked about the Islanders already. Um, the Golden Knights versus the Jets. I was rooting for the Jets. And then I know you remember when I messaged you that Bruce Cassidy used to coach for the Jacksonville Lizard Kings. I used to live in Jacksonville and I was a Lizard Kings fan, and I was a Barracudas fan. That's another rabbit hole we don't want to go down. But um, when I heard his name, I remember messaging you. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I think he, and then I found out, I went on Wikipedia and that he, uh, coached for the Lizard King. So I switched my allegiance from the Jets to the Golden Knights, and the Golden Knights lead the series 1-1. I, watching this game as a hockey fan, I think that this right now with the series tied 1-1 could go either way, but even though I'm pulling for the Golden Knights, I still think the Golden Knights could win as a hockey fan. I think as like their play in the neutral zone and their passing and their forechecking and things that those important things that you have to have in the game. I think that the Golden Knights had the edge. Um, I think the Jets need to be more in the offensive zone and play more in their zone. But I think the Golden Knights at this point, I think that the ice is slanted in their favor.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem Winnipeg's had is they kind of relied on Hellebuck a little bit too much. When you rely on your goalie to bail you out every single time, it's gonna fail eventually. And Vegas found found the weakness in the last game, and I honestly thought Winnipeg was gonna have the momentum in game two because they had that guy that almost had his eye cut out. I can't remember his name. I mean, I'm sure you saw it.
Yeah,
If you haven't seen it, you got to go look at it. I mean, the skate was literally right here, you know, less than an inch probably from taking the guy's eye out. And he comes back to not only finish the game, but started game two. Obviously that was for a little bit of an emotional boost, and it kind of, I almost say, wore out about midway through the first period. That emotional boost, and I think it actually may have actually been a detriment to them because it kind of, you get that big emotional boost, and if it wears out, it just drains you. I think that might have been part of Winnipeg's problem in game two. But being game three in Winnipeg, this is gonna be again another big game.
yeah,
If Vegas can pull out a win and just win one game in Winnipeg, that's going to be a huge boost for them going back to
yeah.
Vegas. If it goes,
Winning on
win
the
one of those two games in Winnipeg, they have to win at least one.
yeah, winning on the road is huge. Winning on the road is huge, and I use that to segue into winning on the road. Um, the obvious differences to the viewer is that you're an Islander fan. We've already talked about the Islanders and the non-call, and the fact that we both think that the Islanders have to take this fourth game. Um, but winning on the road, the Rangers have done that against a higher seed.
Yeah,
And the Devils had home ice advantage, and going into it, I was like, oh man, I mean, this is not good. This is not looking good. I mean, like maybe we can play our game and, make it a series. But the Rangers are leading the series 2-0. And are you watching the game?
I've seen it. I've seen some. I haven't had a chance to watch them all because they've
The
all been on while I've been at work.
the Rangers are just like they're dominating. They're
Yeah,
just dominating. And I think that, like, and the the thing is that the the Rock is like right across the river, so it's packed with Ranger fans and Devil
yeah,
fans. And I just want to know, Devil fans never show up to their games, but all of a sudden they showed up.
yeah.
Yeah, all of a sudden they showed up. All of a sudden they have fans. And it's usually mostly Ranger fans during the regular season. Um, but the Rangers are leading 2-0 going into Madison Square Garden. I think they take the series.
Yeah.
And not as a Ranger fan, as a hockey fan, they have that momentum. First off, going into home, and then, excuse me, then going into the world's most famous arena, home ice, and I don't I know you've seen Ranger games. That's an insane arena. That's an
Yeah.
insane crowd. They have their own chants and everything. And I think that the Rangers win tonight. And I think they take a 3-0 lead. I think we've had a fight already. Um, we've
That
had
was a good
fight.
fight too.
Yeah, that was a good fight. Stevens is the stand-up guy. Um, And you talked about, relying on Connor McDavid. We talked about that for the Oilers, and a lot of teams will pass and rely on one or two guys. I think the Rangers have that all four lines that they can rely on. And I think that it's dangerous that you can pass this advantage act. Even Kane now, all of a sudden. I mean, he got his first playoff goal. And I think um that this is a dangerous team. And I think that, you know, we weren't supposed to beat the Devils in 94. We sure the hell weren't supposed to beat Vancouver because I didn't think that we
No,
were going to beat Vancouver. And we ended up winning the cup. I think that this is a team of destiny because I've been watching them for 30 years. And I think that this is the year that they at least make the cup final. At least make the cup final. And I think that they have the lines to do it. I think that they have the penalty kill to do it. I think that they have the power play to do it. They've got Chris Kreider, who's like the most playoff goals in in history. And I think this is a team of destiny. And I again go back to because I don't want anybody to think that this is a one-sided thing. I go back to the Islanders versus the Hurricanes. Even though I'm pulling for the Hurricanes, I think that the Islanders need to take this fourth game for
yeah,
them to move on. What do you think about the Devils versus the Rangers?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's a sweep.
A
Like you said,
sweep?
if the Rangers win Game 3, I think they're going to sweep.
Yeah,
But it's more like the one thing you said. They don't just rely on one guy. I think that's the one thing the Islanders and the Rangers have in common. Because you look who scored last night for the Islanders. Matt Martin scored.
right.
He's not a goal scorer. He's on, they call it the identity line. You look at the guys who scored for the Islanders, and it was 5 goals by, I think, 5 different guys, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah.
So same, like I said, it's the same with the Rangers. They don't just rely. Everybody thinks, oh, they're going to rely on Zibanejad and Kane, and they don't.
The
It's a
Banishak has
team
been
effort.
quiet, believe it or not. It's
Yeah,
been it's been Kreider, it's been Kako. Kako scored the other day. Lindgren scored. And I mean,
yeah,
like these are guys that are not like, Kako has scored in the regular season, but Lindgren has scored in the regular season, but those are not guys that are normal goal scorers. You go to your Kreider, you go to your
yeah,
Panarin, you go to your Zibanejad, and then Patrick Kane with this third goal of the year since he's been a Ranger, and his first playoff goal. So again, I think I 100% agree with you that if the Rangers take it tonight, that this is a clean sweep.
yeah. Especially with Shesterkin, the way he's been playing. The Devils, if they lose tonight, they don't stand a chance. They're
Yeah.
done.
And then
You know,
they're at the Garden, so
yeah. And it's the
it's
same thing I say with the Islanders with the way Sorokin played last night, really the way he's played all series, and being at home. Both New York teams need to pull it out tonight. The Rangers, they say they pull it out tonight, they're going to sweep the Islanders. I think the Islanders win tonight. They might win the next two. Those games are going to be great.
your game's tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, tomorrow. I'm thinking about the Vegas game, but yeah, the Islanders tomorrow, Rangers tonight. I am glad that the league split it up, where you're not having the Rangers, Devils, and the Islanders playing on the same night.
Yeah.
I do think that was a great idea to do that, because there's been times past where they both played in the same night, and you're splitting up the audience.
Yeah, you really are. You really are.
You know,
Because if you have the Devils play if you have those three teams play the same night, your audience is going, which one do I want to watch?
yeah,
You know.
because the
So
Islanders fans are watching to see the Devils or Rangers lose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So let's get to that's everything to the NHL. So let's
Well,
go
we
ahead.
forgot Toronto and Tampa Bay,
Oh, we forgot Toronto and Tampa Bay.
which I don't care about either one. But
Okay, so
but
here's the thing is that I live in the Tampa Bay area. So you would think that I would be a Tampa Bay fan. I am far from it. Do I have some Tampa Bay memorabilia? You've seen it. I've got some Tampa Bay memorabilia, but it's sentimental. My father was a huge Tampa Bay Lightning fan. I've got Lightning gear all around the house. I've got a signed uh Lightning jersey, but I'm not a Lightning fan. I the series just tied 1-1, and I think that this one I can't call. I just can't call this one.
yeah, I think it's going to be Tampa Bay. And I want it to be Tampa Bay just because I despise Toronto that much that I want them to keep losing in the first round. And that way I can screw with my buddy Doug Mann, who's a huge Maple Leafs fan, and I love giving him shit every time they lose. So, but
So
I
let's talk about this. If if the Leafs win and make it into the second round, how far do they go?
that's it.
You think that's the second round exit? Yeah.
Yeah, because they'll be playing the Rangers, and I don't think they stand the chance against the Rangers.
I think and you brought it up. I think the Rangers are dangerous right now. I think that they are very dangerous. But thank you for reminding me about the Lightning Leafs game. Um, so let's go to the FPHL, which is your baby.
And like
Let's
speaking of FPHL, you said how hot the Rangers have been. The Motor City Rockers in the FPHL were the same way, and they got smoked.
Yeah, they did. And I was pulling for the Rockers, and they ended up losing, and I was very upset.
Yeah, and I was honestly for the see the River Dragons put up those many goals. Motor City's goalie is Trevor Babin, who is probably one of the most underrated goalie in the league, and probably in my opinion one of the top three. And he just had a bad night at the worst possible time last night. So I think it ended up being what 7-2 was the final last night. And here is kind of a crazy stat. Literally at one point last night, the Islanders Hurricanes game was 5-1, and every single game in the FPHL was 5-1.
Yeah, you messaged me that. I remember that.
I looked at the score, but I was like, the odds of that happening is like you buy a lottery ticket. But if and anybody out there that's listening, if you've never heard of the FPHL, look them up. Every single one of their games are broadcast for free on YouTube. You know, it's 100% free. There's no paywall or nothing. You get to enjoy it. It's single A. It's literally the lowest hockey league in professional hockey. It has a lot of problems, behind the scenes, but as far as on the ice, it's entertaining hockey. Nights like last night where every game's a blowout, that doesn't happen all very often.
So speaking of the FPHL, and we'll get into recapping some of the scores and things like that, but that brings us to how you come into the podcast. Tell the viewers because the viewers know me. Um, Tell them a little bit about yourself and how you came to be on Hockey Spotlight.
Well, I was a co-host on this called 10 Minute Misconduct. We call it the unofficial FPHL podcast. We pretty much focus just on that league. And because of my work schedule that I got a promotion at work where my schedule changed. So I couldn't record with them anymore. They recorded on Tuesdays to upload them by Friday, which is the league. 99% of their games are on Friday and Saturday. So it worked out great. We had some, a lot of the players, almost every team, we had somebody on. And because of my schedule, I had to leave that. I'm still gonna be like tonight. They're gonna be live streaming while they're watching the FPHL games. I'll be jumping in, helping out with that. But our friend Eric had, I guess, commented on one of your posts that you were looking at the podcast. He's like, hey, Lee does one, and you just sent me a message, and it was like literally days after I quit that podcast, and I'm like, well, shit, I'll come on with you, talk some NHL, and I'll kind of because you had said something about you wish you had more hockey to watch. I was like, well, the playoffs are started, but here you go, every game's free, and you were first game you were watching the River Dragons and the Rockers game from Detroit Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So kind of got us together, and we're like, what's going on? We'll talk mainly NHL. We'll throw in some of the FPHL, and once the AHL playoffs get more rolling, I'll be watching the Calgary Wranglers game. We can talk about some of that.
Yeah.
But it was literally just you. You're a fan. I'm a fan. I used to be a reporter. I've been used to work for the old Columbus Cottonmouths on the radio. You know,
Really?
yeah, so I've been around. I mean, hockey's been in Columbus since people don't think about Southern hockey, but Columbus, Georgia's had hockey since 1996.
Awesome.
So they're
Awesome.
coming up on what is that now? Almost 30 years. They're going in their 27th season of hockey in Columbus, and I've been involved with them. I've got friends. One of the guy I was talking about, Dougie Mann, played for the Cottonmouths. He was one of my groomsmen in my wedding. He's one of my best friends. I've got
That
friends
was
that.
a that was a big rivalry between the Barracudas and the Cottonmouths.
Yeah, back in the
Yep.
old SPHL days,
Yep.
Craig Stahl. I'm sure you know who Craig Stahl is from the Cottonmouths.
Yep.
He's a good friend of ours. I've got Daryl Moore played for the Cottonmouths.
We both know
Alex
Jason
Galant.
Bone.
Yeah, and yeah, I met Jason Bone a few times. He's really cool. I got to chat with him when he was with the Barracudas and after. I've got, like I say, Alex Galan, who plays for the Calgary Wranglers. He started out in the SPHL with Columbus. That was his first pro team. And I've gotten to know him. He's become a good family friend, and I've made so many contacts through hockey who have become lifelong friends. Kevin Kaminsky, I'm sure you've heard of him. Played for the Capitals for Washington. He coached in the SPHL, and me and him have become friends. That's where I got that hat from. That's his merchandise hat. That's his company, and he sent it to me in a bunch of signed pictures, and just from that, I've had people call me a hockey expert. I'm like, I'm not a hockey expert. I know maybe more than your average fan, but I don't consider myself an expert because there's a lot that I don't know.
Right.
But it's like I just love. I'm a hockey fan. We even have an NAHL team here, the Ice Wolves. They're a junior team. I work as an off-ice official with them because it's hockey. You know, there are people who are NHL fans. I'm a hockey fan. If somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, I got free tickets to a hockey game," oh, who's playing? Oh, it's just two local high school teams. I'm still going
Yeah, exactly.
because I want to go watch hockey.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know,
And
so
I
like I said, FPHL is the lowest level. They are slower than the NHL, but watching it, you don't really tell the speed because they're all skating at the same speed. You'll see them be a little bit sloppy at times because, well, they're in single A hockey. Some of these guys, there's going to be some of these guys who might make it to the East Coast League. Maybe they can make it to the AHL. There's like say hell, there's only been one player of the SPHL make it to the NHL. So it is possible. It's improbable, but these guys are playing for 200 bucks a week, if that, getting their asses kicked every week because they love playing hockey.
Yeah, I was fan of the Lizard Kings there last year. And then I was a fan of the Barracudas for I don't know how long. I think it was 4 or 5 seasons. And I remember the other day I messaged you my Barracudas jersey. And I was PA announcer for the UNF college hockey team for one season, which was really cool. Getting to say scored by
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, yes, I'm a Ranger fan, but if for those that don't know my setup, my Ranger flag is actually covering, God forgive me, my Gretzky signed jersey. I've got, uh, Jean Bellevue, Joe Thornton, Jim Craig, Ray Bork, Brian Leach, Tampa Bay Lightning, all sorts of collectible. Um, I've got pucks from every single, not every single, but a lot of pucks from NHL teams. And I've got some Barracuda merchandise. I got some Lizard King merchandise. Never been to a high school game. I think that would be very interesting to watch them scramble for the puck. I've seen some Pee Wee hockey, which is just cute. It's just
Oh,
cute.
I love Pee Wee hockey. I call it. I always said it's like watching a riot at a daycare center.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the FPHL and tell me what's going on. And even though I kind of know what's going on because I've got my screen over here, um,
Yeah.
this is your baby. This is your part of the podcast.
I mean, so far it's gone like everybody expected. Columbus, Carolina, Danbury, and Binghamton were the four best teams in the league pretty much the entire season. You Columbus had the best record for a while. They kind of went into a little bit of slump. Danbury jumped them, clinched the best record, and literally Carolina and Columbus going into the last game of the season were tied. They played each other the last game of the regular season. Carolina won in overtime. Carolina took first place in their division, so they got to play Port Huron, who they're not the best team, but they're still good. They actually won the season series against Carolina, but didn't matter last night. Carolina blew them out last night. Columbus and Motor City. Motor City was hot coming into the playoffs. They literally won not maybe like a month before the season was over. They won 2 out of 3 from Columbus. They won 2 out of 3 from Carolina. And I honestly thought they were going to beat Columbus. They were that hot. Columbus took that first game up in Fraser outside Detroit, and then last night again blew out Motor City and took the series. It's only best of three series in the FPHL, so they swept that series. They're moving on. They'll play Carolina or Port Huron, who had actually start here pretty soon at 4 Eastern, and then Danbury was playing Elmira, which I was telling you the way the divisions are though the Mississippi Seawolves had a better record than Elmira. Well, because they were in the division with Motor City and them and Columbus, they're eliminated. Well, Elmira is in the playoffs. Elmira and Watertown both have losing records, but they're in the playoffs. And Danbury pretty much wiped the floor with Elmira. And same thing with Binghamton. Binghamton just killed Watertown, who Watertown's had some problems. They've had more than once this season. They've had one of the best scorers in the league. They had a guy named Yanni Liarakos. They traded him, led the team in scoring. They traded him to Mississippi.
Wow.
Elmira had a player called Parker Moskal, who he's a friend of mine. They trade him to Watertown. Watertown pretty much treats him like crap. And he said, screw it, release me. I'm done. They release him. He was their leading scorer. They had a guy called Larry Yellowknee who wasn't a scorer, but he is kind of like a Ryan Reeves type player, who he's on the ice, nobody's gonna mess with him. He got so fed up, he left and went back to Canada, went back to the reservation, and said, "I'm done. I'm not playing anymore." So that team's very dysfunctional. There's some other things that I can't talk about in public. I don't want to get sued, but I can tell you about that off the air. But they're very dysfunctional, both Elmira and Watertown. Elmira actually had a scandal where there was a player hiding in that was in Elmira who was wanted for sexual assault in Utah, and everybody thinks that the owner was hiding him out. Now, obviously, the owner is denying it. Nobody can prove that they were hiding him out. So those are probably the two most dysfunctional teams in the league. So they're going to get swept. I have no doubt about it. They're going to get swept. And honestly, I think all four first round series in the FPHL are going to be sweeps. The playoffs aren't going to really start until the second round. Carolina and Columbus are probably one of the biggest rivalries in hockey. They actually had the last game before COVID shut everything down in 2020. They had a bench clearing brawl,
Nice.
and I'll send you that video. I'll put it up on Facebook. They've had bench clearing brawls. They've had just dirty shots. A lot of the guys that played for Columbus now played for Carolina. They won the cup in 2019, and their general manager from Carolina is the general manager in Columbus now. Their captain from Carolina is the captain in Columbus now. Even their play-by-play announcer came to Columbus for 2 seasons before he went do something else. But yeah, so that's a huge rivalry. If they make it in the playoffs, that's gonna be a series to keep an eye on for sure. And Binghamton and Danbury, they're just two good teams. I think I think that's gonna be, if you want my prediction, I think it's gonna be Danbury and Columbus in the finals. And that for a finals is literally gonna be a crapshoot because they're two of the best teams in the league. They had some of the best series as far as playing during the regular season. They had some of the best games. I think that's going to be the best finals. If Carolina does happen to take out Columbus, they don't stand a chance against Danbury. But that's just my opinion.
So, we'll link everything here on YouTube. Thanks first off for watching. Also, make sure you subscribe. We'll be trying to uh do an episode a week if we can. We just gotta figure out how to get together and when to get together. We also have a Facebook page. We'll link you to that. Also, we'll link you to the FPHL website, which is federalhockey.com. You can check that out. Now,
Yeah, go
currently,
to that. I think it says live games or something, and
yeah,
it links you to every team's Facebook
yeah,
or rather YouTube page for the
yeah,
live streams.
yeah. So definitely check that out. I think that just talking in this first episode, thank you for being my co-host. First off, I think it's been a great conversation. It's not been one-sided. It's not been like the Islanders and the Rangers rivalry.
No,
It's two hockey fans that happen to have opposing teams as favorites. I think that we can definitely get into more like the AHL, the SPHL, and just hockey in general. Um, and I think that you bring a lot to the table, and I appreciate you. And thank you so much.
you're welcome. No problem. This was fun,
All right, that's been Hockey Spotlight, episode one, the return of Hockey Spotlight. Thank you so much. I am Liana,
and I am Lee.
and we'll see you next episode.
Yes.